Alright, so this is my midterm project. It uses a couple of assets that were off the Unreal Marketplace, those two being the Skeleton Crew, which was free last month, and the Medieval Dungeons level set that is just permanently free, available to everybody. And so what I'm going to start out here with talking about is my main menu. And so in its level blueprint, there's just a simple thing there. It says that on event started, it'll add this widget to the viewport so we can see the main menu, and it'll play this 2D music. It'll play it for a set amount of time. And to go a little bit more detail on this, we've got our level select button here, which here over on the bottom monitor, we have what goes on with all these buttons. So once you hit game start, obviously open the first level, level select, it will hide the previous menu and show up this menu with level select 1, 2, and 3, which go to their respective levels, as well as whenever we hit return, it'll go back to the main menu. And so let's go ahead, hit game start. And typically as well in this level, as soon as it starts, it plays a different song. And if we go over here to the new HUD, which is basically all it's doing, well, it's doing a lot more than just a little bit. It receives the HUD's screen size, so it gets our native resolution, and then sets it as a screen dimension. And what it'll do from there is it'll check a Boolean value of if we're loading into battle. If we're not loading into battle, then it'll go down here to this bottom tree, which all it does is it will print out a basic loading screen as long as we're not in that battle load condition. And then it'll check here if we're loading, and if we're into this little hitbox that's going to be right here at the door, it'll print out that loading screen. And so it has another small thing here right at the very end, checking a Boolean variable of battle 1, which I'll go into detail here. And all it'll do is throw us to a different stage rather than what it currently does in the loading screen, where it'll just bring us here to our example. And so if we go right here, that cutscene trigger is what pulls us right into here. So we'll go ahead and go a little advanced here on the cutscene trigger. And so what the cutscene trigger here is doing is that once you overlap, it'll play the little loading sequence which you just saw, or the animation that you just saw, and it will set that we are in cutscene and that we are in battle load, which will tell new HUD to throw in the correct screen loading, which we've got right up here. And it'll just say, hey, we're in battle load, print this material to screen, and then open up the battle level, module 4. And now that we're in our battle instance, I can go into a little bit of detail on how I managed to make this work. And so to be able to cast to the skeleton here, to get a bunch of different things, I had to do a get all actors and then put it into a for each loop so that I could get anything to reference out of it. And so what we have here is whenever we press the attack button, he'll do his attack swing, and after a delay, it will deal the damage to the user's health bar, which is shown right here. And obviously as soon as we hit the button, his health bar will decrement as well. And so after it decrements his health, it'll check and see here if his health is less than or equal to 0. If it's false, it'll go down here and do that attack animation, which was just shown, and deal damage to the player. As well as, I made a way to prevent it where you can't just mash the button rapidly. As soon as you press attack, it will set the input mode to game only. And so that we can't, just hit the button crazy. But then, after a small delay of about a second afterwards, it loops his animation back to this idle animation that's playing currently, as well as it'll set us back to UI only, so that we can hit the buttons on the UI again. And once his HP is equal to 0, which as soon as that bar up at the top is emptied, we'll go through play animation here, which will play his death animation. Say that he is dead, set that Boolean value to true. and it'll set the loading and battle 1 to true. And that loading and battle 1 is what's checked here right at the very end of my new HUD blueprint. And all that's doing is setting it to where once he's defeated, it'll print out that same load screen that we saw coming into this stage, which we'll see here in just a second, that loading. But instead of going to that hallway, it takes us to the final stage level, which printed out, you won, he plays his animation, he falls over dead, and it quits out a game. And so we can make a little bit of use of the level select here I have. If I hit 3, throws us straight into the battle nearly seamlessly. And I can go into a little bit more explanation of exactly how my defend and my flee work. So defend works similarly to attack. Hit the button, can't hit it again, but we obviously don't do any damage because we're defending. And it will go through here, play the attack animation, all that deal, and reset him back to idle. And then when it deals the damage to us, rather than just minusing it from his attack damage and then setting it to our current health, it will take his random damage within a range and then halve it, and then set that halve as our new health, or the halved damage subtracted from the current health as our new health. And as well with our flee button here, whenever you press it, you have a 50% chance of, after that attack animation plays out, it'll print this out, you could not run away. And you actually take a larger range of damage because you're fleeing, so just cowardice damage, I guess. And it will subtract that from your health and set it as current, as it always does, and then it'll reset him back to his idle animation. But in this 50% chance, if we succeed, as it did right here, it sets us back to our main our level, and then we can hit the cutscene trigger again and see Spooky Skeleton Man swing at us again, pull us back through into our cutscene trigger, and the fight's restarted. And so we've been talking about a bunch of different Boolean values going on with this, and so I better go through what's going on with them. So we have here in the third-person character blueprint a couple of different Boolean values, which have been referenced as we've seen throughout all of this. Those being the loading, the in cutscene, battle load, in battle, out of battle, battle 1, and his 2 float values, his health and his max health. There is nothing that happens in the character, but all these values are stored specifically on him, and they are all public so that they can be edited in different things that isn't just the character. And so, similarly, the Skeleton King actually has his own values, as well as we have a little widget here. If you look, see here, the health bar right above him is its own separate widget that was attached to his actor. And it has its own little widget blueprint over here, obviously, doing exactly what you would with the player's health being calculated. It'll take the current health, max, divide it, and then set it back. And he has a couple of variables smacked onto himself as well. He's got the isDead variable, which is actually referenced even in his own blueprint, as well as in the... where are you at? In the HUD. Never mind. It's not the HUD. Okay, yeah. It was only in the Skeleton King where his isDead is actually being referenced. And all it's doing is, as long as he's alive, everything will play out as normal, as long as he is alive, everything will play out as it's supposed to, because the Boolean value is false. It'll go through here, check if we're in cutscene, which is what that cutscene trigger does, sets it as true. And then when we hit this branch right here, it'll check actively, hey, are we in cutscene? If we are, we'll go ahead and go back over to our level select here. and we'll hit that cutscene trigger that's right here at the door. We'll do this slow animation, and then he'll get that wind-up swing. That wind-up swing is exactly what I'm talking about. It'll do that once, do his attack animation on a delay, but if we are not in a cutscene, then it'll go down here, and it will check and see, are we in battle? If we're in battle, it'll set true, and then we can see this health bar up here. Otherwise, on start, as we can see, if we go back into here again, he doesn't have a health bar printed over top of him. We can't see that at all. But because of that in-battle boolean, it makes sure that as soon as we're in that battle, it will print it out right over top of him after the cutscene plays out. Make sure everything loads in correctly. And we'll go ahead and we will let him do his attack animations, play through. And get him down to dead. I almost died. You've slain the skeleton. Falls over dead. Hop on top of him. And that's the game over. Finish the game. If there were credits, I'd put in credits, but this wasn't long enough to put in credits. There was definitely a few ways that I could have made this a little bit more efficient. I'm going to be experimenting with them more because I very much enjoyed putting together this this RPG. I'm going to experiment with AI a little bit more so that I can get him to do actual true attack options rather than when I hit this button, he'll attack, which it can work, but it makes it a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. As well as there is a way to make level transitions a lot more smooth, not specifically opening a level itself, which I just saw towards the end of finishing this project actually, where you can basically fit all levels into one and change their visibilities. So I'm going to experiment with that more in the future, more than likely in this project leading up, and we'll see how we go from there. Otherwise, the music that was used in this is actually royalty free. It was made by a creator on YouTube. I do not remember his name exactly. He's from Japan, and he has a website, which if anybody's interested, I can share that, which is a bunch of stock RPG songs and a little bit more dramatic current generation RPG songs, which he's made himself and uploaded to his website for everybody to use. Otherwise, this has been my midterm project, and I hope everybody liked it.